Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of eCommerce Growth Show, episode number 21. And today we're going to speak about direct-to-consumer and user intent. Thanks a lot, Ben, for being together with us today.
Yeah, a pleasure to be here, Valentin. We've talked and chatted frequently over the past, I don't know, couple of years, and it's always a pleasure to chat. And the subject matter I work on day in and day out, so I'm at your disposal to geek out on this however you want. Yeah.
Excellent. So first, let me give to our audience a bit of context about yourself and what you do. So Ben combines years of academic and research training with user experience knowledge to help scope and run experimentation programs for companies at Conversion Excel agency. He's also doing some art according to his LinkedIn profile. Yeah. So Ben, tell us how you are mixing art with data in order to improve companies' performance.
I don't know how I'm very successful at mixing art with the business work, but I think what ties it together is what you mentioned there in the beginning, the years of academic experience. So I'm not native to the field of marketing. I come from academia. I was working in 10 years as a research scientist at the University of Texas in Austin. And I was a staff researcher doing a lot of modeling around water resource data and environmental data, conservation data, and helping organizations, Department of Interior, government organizations like the state and the federal government, and making decisions with their data. And I've sort of transferred that over and started in the agency world working with CXL and applying some of those same systems and scientific thinking to experimentation on e-commerce shops and B2B shops and things like that. The art is I've always been a passionate about art. Young in my career, before going to college, I was like fork in the road. Do I study art or do I study science? I was into both, and I picked science, but I've always done art. And so I've got an art project called Inked Animal that's quasi-successful. We sell art and it gets licensed, and we've got some good prints out there, but we won't don't derail me on that. I'll bore the audience.
Okay, so Ben, you have this academic experience, and also you've worked with Conversion Excel Agency and CXL Institute as well with Peplaya. Tell us what was your let's say insight after you've got into the trenches of actually running experimentation, not only looking at the theory of how to use data for companies.
Wow, there's a lot in that question, because so I would say that I was in the trenches within academia pretty well, and I was in academia always the oddball, wanting to move faster with decision making, and how agile you were with, okay, you can crunch the numbers and come up with a decision support metric, but how quickly you actually make a decision. And that's a big issue with academia, that oftentimes you produce a paper, you produce a report, and it goes into a drawer and it doesn't actually create change. Coming over to marketing, it was sort of the exact opposite, like change without data. And so now, but CXL agency and experimentation by nature is data forward and data focused. I started, I guess, in the trenches relative to the marketing world, actually doing CXL Institute work. The first year of the Institute, it was not only courses, it was also custom and industry-wide research. These UX researchers, a lot of eye tracking research, that would apply across the industry. So sort of getting some kind of base research that could apply more generally. And so I conducted 30, 40 research endeavors. A bunch of them are published on our site. Again, a lot of eye tracking, a lot of custom survey work, things like that. That was in the trenches quite a bit. The Institute pivoted to only courses, The research was expensive and not as valued as the courses. And so they were like, well, what else, what else can Ben do? And so, okay, let me start going and helping out the agency. So it's been 3+ years with the agency now, very successful. I'm one of, leadership there and helping run it and create the vision. There's a lot of nuance to your somewhat simple question there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Ben, the topics for today are around using the user intent, the voice of customer research to improve the value proposition and improve eventually to move the needle for direct to consumer businesses. First of all, tell us a bit about your experience with D2C e-commerce companies.
Yeah. So my biggest experience probably was strapping myself to the rocket ship of native deodorant. This was a company, kind of a direct-to-consumer, I don't know what you call it, like not a case study, but a flagship kind of case study within the industry of how to do things right. And the credit goes to the success of Moeez Ali, the now ex-CEO and founder of Native Deodorant. But for 3 years, I worked with Moeez doing A/B testing on that site. We worked with them before they were acquired, eventually by Procter & Gamble. And then, Moeez had a nice exit for that company, and it was very successful. So now it's a Procter & Gamble brand. It's in all sorts of retail stores. So it's a bit of an omni-channel kind of presence now, not just direct to consumer. So it's in, Target, at least here in the US, probably some more now as well. But that cut my teeth quite a bit with regards to direct to consumer e-commerce. But I've also say that in the last 3 years, we've done a lot of direct to consumer on the other side of the consideration time spectrum. Which is things like mattresses, lab-grown diamond rings, things like this. So other types of products that are not like deodorant, where the conversion rates are crazy high. People are used to buying deodorant; they buy it every day. Okay, it costs $12, no problem. That's okay. I'll buy it. But $1,000 mattress, a $10,000 diamond ring. Very different beast, different animal. So when you think about best practices, customer journeys, lifetime value, these things are totally different beasts. I mean, they're bigger differences there than B2C and B2B as a general model, right? So 'cause you can have B2B like a payroll software or something like that that's like $20 a month or $40 a month. That's similar, that's not too far from deodorant, right? But I'm interested in lifetime value. I want recurring. I'm thinking subscriptions. But mattresses, I buy once every, 10 years or something, or 8 years. And so the lifetime value means something very different there. So
the repurchase rate is way lower, and the average days between the transactions is way higher. So now that we're here on this topic, Ben, what can you tell us about what you've learned from these different companies? We ourselves have access to hundreds of e-commerce stores that are pushing this data, and we are seeing these tremendous differences between the average days between the transactions, which are closely correlated with customer retention. But what have you seen, and what are some things that they should be considering in order to improve customer lifetime value based on this buying cycle, which is different? So what insights have you got?
I do have some first top of mind thoughts on this, but before I go into them, I would say that my experience on this is not as a general marketer. It's more of the on-site experience, right? And what happens after, but also dealing with the frequency of purchase after that. But I don't have a ton of visibility or experience on what happens before, right? The acquisition side of things. For example, On mattresses and things like this, it's much more of a brand marketing focus, less performance marketing. I think that has implications on what you do on the site and how you measure and things like that, which I can get into. But that's not quite my expertise. And so top of mind, my thoughts on what you do for these different companies have that sort of asterisk, right? Like my specialty is sort of that on-site experience and journey. With regard to get into your question, I mean, with the fast-moving consumer goods segment, direct-to-consumer, the performance marketing side, the on-site journey, you're looking session-based. Typically, you're wanting specific actions and behaviors every time someone visits. And the big thing there that we found was to really not focus on conversion rate too much. In fact, with like Native Deodorant, for example, we worked with that site for almost 3 years, and the conversion rate stayed about the same the whole time. I mean, we were running tests to affect conversion rate, but really where the wins came was that we kept on running tests and kept on learning and improving the experience, and allowing them to triple the traffic to the site and retaining that conversion rate. And allowing them to add products and add different packages and things like that. So with the fast-moving consumer good, it was more AOV focused, sacrificing conversion rate, actually thinking about average order value. You know, does someone that purchases the first time, do we want them to increase AOV now to sacrifice it later? Or maybe we want what's the something small we give them to increase the chances of repeat purchase and a longer tail lifetime value. So there was some data science there and a lot of numbers to crunch to work on that data science on what made sense. Do we upsell them on first visit? Do we upsell them on repeat visit? Things like that. That was a core. That's really where we put a ton of focus in towards the end, that data science. With the longer consideration time thing, more of a brand marketing play, a little bit more analogous to like a B2B situation where people are, they're coming, they're evaluating, they're open a bunch of tabs, they think about it a lot. It takes them some months to get it. They share a URL with their spouse, in the diamond ring space, it was the woman that would shop, but it was the man that purchased. So the user was not the buyer, and this is very analogous to B2B.
Yeah.
So in this world, it was about the journey. So the biggest wins we got there were when someone would drop into the site, how quickly they got to product page, what questions, what value they saw along the way. Right. So did we send them directly there? Was there a bit of a cul-de-sac where we asked them some questions, things like that? That was a big play. And then more and more, this idea of smart funneling, this idea of capturing intent and capturing like sort of a permission marketing type of is another way to say it. Who are you? What are you looking for? Asking these questions on the front end, allowing them to self-describe, and then, I am this person. Yes, I am this person. Yes. And getting them to shake their head. Yes. You're grabbing that zero party data, that intent data. You can then remarket with it, which makes marketing more efficient. So all the retargeting. And then maybe if it's, again, if they provided an email, maybe you can do some drip campaigns customized according to that as well. So the sales process or the marketing side on that side is a little bit different. So I would say, to drill back to your question, the big focus on the fast moving direct to consumer is just a big focus on that data science. What do you do for the segments, first purchase, second purchase, and how do you potentially sacrifice conversion rate to think about AOV? And then on the flip side, the longer consideration time, it's really about how can your site, what a user does on your site, help your marketing, because they're going to leave. So how they're not going to purchase right away. How can you make your marketing more efficient based on what they've done on the site?
Yeah. What I'm let's say getting from your take here, Ben, is that what it matters is not only to improve conversion rate by the sake of for the sake of improving the conversion rate, but also following the total customer lifetime cycle, let's say, and understanding at the end of the day how the business is making money. Because from what I understand, it doesn't matter if you have a high AOV and then the customer stops buying because you've paid the customer acquisition cost, and your margin is not going to be that high. While you can, let's say, balance and do this kind of cohort A/B testing, let's say, following a group of customers that have been onboarded differently and that got a special treatment, and see what is the customer lifetime value for cohort A versus B. So that's what you're telling, actually, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one type of e-commerce that we haven't even talked about, it's less direct to consumer. It's more SaaS-y in a way, is subscription e-commerce.
Yeah.
You can subscribe to deodorant, but you can also subscribe to online courses and all sorts of things. And we work with the brand Code Academy. We've worked with them for a year and a half or so, almost 2 years. And what you described there, like cohorting and understanding like this onboarding process, how does that work for that group versus not? That's a huge part of the testing endeavor, and to the extent that it affects the strategy of the whole company, right? Freemium versus paid trial, credit card upfront trial. These types of things can be tested very explicitly when you're doing that cohort, as you put it. Yeah.
What I think it's tremendously important also, Ben, is the shift that the market is doing towards, let's say, looking at different channels. Because I've seen a lot of companies being, let's say, having these departments siloed within the organization. Let's say the email team, the email marketing team, the social marketing team, and so on. And I think that doesn't work anymore in a direct-to-consumer organization where, like the guys from adoreme.com told me, they are capturing the user intent, and then they are informing what kind of products they should be building in the next 6 months and 1 year, what type of campaigns they should be running in order to keep their current audience, what kind of let's say behavior patterns their customers have, and how to tailor not only the email marketing, but the customer acquisition campaigns. Because once you understand how to match the right products with the right audience, then you have a winning company, and you are truly data driven. But while you keep your, let's say, departments disconnected and having particular KPIs like open rate, bounce rate, whatever, and not following the North Star metric of customer lifetime value, you end up, let's say, optimizing for a local maxima instead of the overall growth of the company.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't know if it's new. There is some decent focus on it. There's focus on getting the metrics right, and we're seeing sort of an explosion in the space around connecting downstream metrics with kind of the front end testing initiatives. So the lifetime value and all that kind of stuff, and you know all of that. We've talked about that before. But with regards to connecting the channels or connecting the silos, I don't think that there's anything new there necessarily. I think it's always been a problem. My best way that I phrase that is that there's, it's a problem when teams are built on channels rather than customer journeys. So teams and awareness of the problems being, so siloed and based on artifacts of human created artifacts rather than kind of customer driven value. There's misalignment there, as you put it. One of the classic examples is Zappos. This has been written about in a few books. Their customer success story. They used to have the metric, the KPI for the customer success team used to be number of calls So if they go through more calls, that's good. You get through more volume of customer support requests. But they came in and totally changed that. They changed up the metric to more of a satisfaction metric, and they had someone, a customer service representative, stay on the call for 10 plus hours with one customer. 10 hours on one customer. The customer ended up buying one pair of shoes, but it took 10 hours of a customer service representative, and they celebrated that throughout the whole company. They took that as an example, and they sort of had a huge celebration. They posted it. They rewarded that type of activity because it was more customer centric, and it represented kind of a more customer centric metric compared to like just going through a bunch of calls, which motivated their customer sales reps to be short. You know, like, what's your problem? Okay, bye. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Like, how much are you spending with the customer as a KPI is not a customer-centric KPI at all. Yeah, Ben, I wanted to ask you something. We've got a lot of people from the CRO industry in the show. We've got people from the e-commerce management teams, and I've seen that there is some sort of let's say misalignment between what the crowd coming from the CRO is seeing against what the e-commerce leaders are seeing. So while the e-commerce leaders are not that acquainted with the experimentation, and they are looking are seeing this as a, let's say, as a way to improve the UX, not as a way to improve the whole customer journey, not as a way to improve the product inventory, not as a way to improve the customer service, because once you find out what's based on the user intent and based on the customer voice, you can end up improving the whole company. So mainly that's why I think there is this transition from the CRO towards more like towards the customer journey optimization or customer value optimization. And I wanted to ask you, what's your take on this? Do you think the CRO as it is will emerge into a bigger category or into a bigger market by helping these e-commerce leaders, and not only in the e-commerce, for other companies as well, to be more data-driven and apply the experimentation mentality into their companies? Or you think that CRO will stand in its, let's say, position of improving the website or fixing some bad UX? What's your take?
I've got a lot of opinions on this. This is a good question. I like this one. So I'll start with sort of the history of the legacy that we're in right now as the CRO industry. I think, like you mentioned, we're pigeonholed around UX testing, and optimization is the key word right there. As an optimizer, the focus is margins and process, right? It's not like growth and channels and things like. As an optimizer, you're like, let's get better margins. Okay, we're good with our core set, but we're bringing in all this new traffic from this other channel. Let's optimize for them as well. So you're trying to make your ad spend more efficient. You're trying to improve the customer journey. You're trying to delight and your customer through that digital journey. So UX is a big part of that focus, and that's where we've been for a long time. And that's still, I think, fundamental and core, but now we do need to think about the renaming or repositioning CRO and thinking more about customer experience optimization, where it's a little bit bigger. So for example, we're starting to work with companies more broadly about using experimentation and just more generally using data for decision support. A company's strategy as a whole, a strategy is a hypothesis, and that can be tested. So using data to change how you do any process is where CRO is going, right? Using data to make marketing more efficient, to change the way that you market, to change how you use data and how you use tools like AI tools or machine learning tools to do marketing automation. Using data for decision support for changing how you do sales, changing that sales process. You can use experimentation to play around with that and to help with decision support. So the new model for experimentation versus CRO is experimentation is this layer underneath all the channels. And it's not there to make decisions for that channel owner, for that website owner, for the marketing owner, for the product owner. It's there to provide decision support. And then they make the decision on what to do. And so the company that learns faster wins. And that's what experimentation, and that's where CRO is going, is to help us learn faster at a faster pace. This backs into decision support theory. It backs into science and what science is for and what it's useful for. But that's where the CRO is going and maturing, and as to be experimentation function layer underneath the channels.
Yeah, Ben, on your in your perspective, let's say, it's also included that CRO is should stay should have the same name, but we've been seeing this for a lot of time. In e-commerce, it's better to improve the things like revenue per visitor or even margin per visitor than conversion rate, because it can be detrimental for a company to improve conversion rate while decreasing, I don't know, the AOV or the margin. And still we name it a CRO. Now we are all aware that it's better for a company to grow, not only to acquire customers, but to retain those customers and improve the customer lifetime value. Therefore, the companies that learn to be customer-centric and improve customer lifetime value across channels, across product lines, and across, I don't know, locations, is the one that is winning, because mainly it's the customer lifetime value that is the strongest indicator of the success of a company. However, we have companies from various agencies coming from the customer acquisition realizing, hey, we need to look at the CLV. We have agencies coming from the CRO perspective that are now doing things way more strategical than before. So they are not only fixing, they are not there to fix bad user journeys. They are there to improve the total company's performance, because they are after such an endeavor, the customer service could be improved, product merchandising could be improved, a lot of aspects from the company should be improved. However, we still name it CRO. Do you think this is going to be changed, or we should label CRO in, I don't know, 5 to 10 years from now, but we will still do some fantastic things towards experimenting for the whole channels of the company?
Yeah, we're about to reposition and rebrand our agency because of this. So, you know, the CXL, we have other reasons as well, because CXL is more than the agency, it's more than the institute. We've got copy testing, we've got another e-learning thing coming out. And so we have other motivations, but along the way, we're taking advantage of tackling the issue that you bring up. You know, and we're be going towards customer experience optimization. So connecting it closer to the, you know, customer value. So, you know, connecting business value with customer value, aligning those more directly. Yeah. So I think in the short term, we use this name, but we apply it more broadly. One of my favorite mental models is by Richard Feynman. That, you know, the name of something is not the same as the something, right? So we use the name conversion rate optimization, but we mean something else, right? So,
but he must be joking, right?
What?
He must be joking, Mr. Feynman.
No, well, what do you mean he might be joking?
He had that famous book. You must be joking, Mr. Feynman.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, it's his famous way of explaining it is the name of a bird is not the same as the bird. The name speaks more to the person giving the bird the name than the actual bird. So I think what it'll take is like an industry leader to come in and create like a new term, and maybe it's customer experience optimization. I've seen some tools use that terminology, like I think Full Story, even Optimizely, the testing tool. You'll see things like CX workshop or something like that. Like you'll see more of the CX. Full story digital experience, right? DX. That's maybe that'll catch on. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think the time will tell, but I'm sure that we need to rethink the way we are labeling this so that it makes more sense for everyone in the industry. And I'm really excited to be on the in this industry. We've consciously decided to pivot from the website testing towards the customer value optimization with building our new product. I must say to you that it's opening our whole new perspective. While we've grabbed something like data from something like 350 different e-commerce stores on Shopify. And we've seen there some amazing facts towards segmenting customers differently, looking at the laggards, let's say, differently, like we call them the breakups and the ex-lovers, let's say. By using the RFM segmentation, you can see, okay, what are the toxic products that made some customers churn? Our best customers have churned, and you can see this kind of anomalies, like 28% of the customers that stopped buying after they've bought a lot of times bought this product. And then there are a lot of, let's say, improvements to do, and I think people like you and me, these kind of data geeks, could find a lot of data and let's say interesting and insightful and actionable data by looking at things differently. Because once you get away from the website itself, so once you shift your focus and get your, let's say, experience and know-how from optimizing the website towards optimizing the business itself, you can give a lot of know-how and to the business owners, which are not that acquainted with our in-depth thinking, experimenting mentalities.
I would. Yeah, that ties back to what I mentioned around native deodorant, about the core focus there was doing some of the data science and what to show when and et cetera. And so, what you're saying represents the ability for a marketer to have that data, at the tip of their fingers, right? They've got it there more available. So you're not relying on or having to rely on data scientists to like spend time to crunch those numbers out. And we're seeing more and more of that. Like as a strategy, like for an agency, we're testing across a ton of sites, and we're changing our mental model for how we go about approaching the testing problem. For example, we still like the test, measure, learn, the learning focused types of tests. These are the A/B tests, right? You learn something.
Yeah.
But what we're changing the way we're applying the focus there. For example, we're going away from more expensive tools like Optimizely and VWO and Adobe Target, and recommending like, okay, let's just do the surgical A/B testing with the cheaper tool, and then spend that tool budget on a more advanced tool that can allow you to go way faster with testing multiple hypotheses on top of each other with something like Evolve is it .io or .ai, or something like Intellimize, which does auto segmentation and auto personalization. And so hooking that, more expensive beast of a tool, top funnel, and then doing the surgical learning as well with a cheaper tool. So that kind of represents a change in our minds of how we can work on a site, on a digital experience. So it's not, you're not running 10 A/B tests at the same time with one tool. You're running like 3 or 4 surgical tests with a tool, and then you've got this like beast of a tool that's running in the background and using machine learning to kind of create a dynamic website for across a bunch of visitors.
Don't you think this approach, Ben, is let's say stopping holding you to be consistent on every channel? Because you have an experience with the customer. Let's say you have a VIP customer that bought from this product line, I don't know, deodorants. Let's say he bought 8 times and he's using social media to get in touch with your brand, with native deodorants, let's say. But he has let's say bad customer experience, and I don't know, the shipment wasn't there, and it got delayed for 3 days. He needed to switch to another competitor, whatever. Something happened, something occurred in the flow of the relation between him and native deodorant. While this website testing tool could allow them to test continuously and shift, let's say, the messaging, the whatever approach from the company, without knowing that you have a VIP customer that gave you a 0 score on the NPS. Would you say the same thing on all the channels? Would you say, hey, welcome back? Or would you say, thanks for being our customer on the default mode? Or would you say, sorry, we dropped the ball on the social media, remarketing ads? Would you say, sorry, we dropped the ball on the whatever email sequence that's triggered automatically? So what I'm a big supporter is to orchestrate and to write scenarios that are activated and evergreen based on the relation. So I see two things. One is the customer value to the company, and then is the experience itself. If you have high customer value and bad experience, you have an interesting, let's say, aspect to tackle.
Yeah, there's two things I think of when you go through that, and I think this is great to speak to. One, the foundation of getting to where you're at is a data problem. To making sure that how you're learning is connected to how you're instrumenting and how you're positioning your website. And this is really important. And the other thing, the other bullet, and I'll come back to it, but the other bullet is like the learning versus optimizing. These are, in my mind, I don't think that they need to be different, but it helps me to have a mental model that they are two different things. And so, and I'll come back to that. But on the first thing, on the data problem, yeah, absolutely. So you can't just be showing some random things. And like I said, those tools that I mentioned, the more advanced ones, do solve the problem and allow you to monitor by channel the performance, hooking that up to specific data points that are downstream that might come from, for example, a customer experience platform, something like Usability. One of my favorite lately is one called UserLeap that would trigger the NPS and get that data, and then having that tied back through a data lake, right? That's your data problem. Like, how does that actually tie back to what's instrumented on your site, and when they come back, what do they see? So that fundamentally, you've got a data problem, a data lake need. You're needing a tool like Segment to ETL all of that and to get it all correctly. But then you can get your experience tool to spin up like if then that, and then have at the disposal and to show that, see if it works. Maybe it doesn't. For those cases where you have your people scoring lower on your NPS in your example, if they come back and say like, hey, maybe we can do better this time around, like, thank you for coming back and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's really powerful. And that, I think there's two sides of that. This is my second point: the learning versus optimizing. There's a danger with these big robust tools that you're just setting that up, letting it run, and not paying attention to some of those maybe unmeasurables, right? So first of all, making it measurable, right? Making it connected. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Yeah, so making it measurable, but then also making sure that you're continuing to focus on the learnings part of it, and not just setting and forgetting, so to speak. Yeah, but with those robust tools, you can watch your segments and watch your channel performances to an extent. But I lost you on my screen share, but can you still see me? No. Oh, there you are. You're back. You're muted though, Valentin. I still see you muted. Well, he comes back. For those of you on the podcast, if you're interested in some of those yeah, Evolve and Telemize, both really cool, pretty powerful tools. Some of the other, Dynamic Yield, Optimize's got a personalization engine, but they're different beasts, and they don't work quite the same as the two other ones that I mentioned. And there's some other ones on the market as well that are doing some of this auto personalization, auto channelization, but it's very different than having to instrument and orchestrate ahead of time a lot of the experiences versus setting it up and allowing the machine learning to do what it's supposed to do. So it's kind of some different categories. Are you back? Can I hear you?
Yeah, of course. I'm back. I'm here. I was learning about our competitors, Dynamic, and then all of them. So, Ben, regarding the learning itself, what I think it's important is to also monitor and adjust. You were mentioning that it's one thing to orchestrate and leave it be on autopilot, and another thing to constantly improve and monitor what's going on. What I think it's important is the last aspect from our topics today is how you improve based on the voice of customer research. So I've had here Andre Morris a few weeks ago, and he stated something fantastic, like the 5 questions that he's asking that he proposed to e-commerce companies to ask their customers in order to improve their business performance. And one of the questions was something related to what almost stopped you from buying from us today. What is your take on using the customer voice and the user intent to improve the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a softball question for me, because I literally just created a course on the CXL Institute all about voice of customer data within an experimentation program. So I got a lot to talk about this. You can check out the course and the Institute. I think you can get a $1 trial for a week, and it's only a 2-hour course. So you can go in there and jump it out and get a ton of this if you're interested in geeking out on voice of customer. We do have a bit of a rubric on how we think about voice of customer. That question that Andre Morris put out there would speak to the part of our playbook around customer anxieties, getting at the fears, uncertainties, and doubts. And that question assumes that they've completed the journey, so that they are a customer. Maybe they just became the first-time customer, and that's a really powerful place to ask. Like the very first-time customer, they just came in through your funnel. They had the motivation to complete the funnel, and then right on the thank you page, there's no friction there because they've already purchased. You've already got the conversion. What almost held you back? There's a portion of your users that get through that journey that would have gone through no matter what. They're your core customer. Your value proposition resonates with them. They're who you speak to. So you're not going to get actually good data from them. But optimization is all about margins and process. So how do you address that? So it's the other portion, the minority probably, or maybe the majority, that are sort of on the fence. They went through the conversion anyway. And they did have some hesitations. They did have some worries and questions in their head. That question's really fantastic. So a post-purchase survey, it's the highest completion rates and things like that. I would also, and very analogous to that, on the product page or on the cart, what's holding you back? No, actually, the best way to phrase it is there something holding you back from making a purchase today? It's a very surgical, aggressive question, but the options are yes or no. Is there something holding you back from making a purchase? No. Yes, no. That's it. It's just as easy to click yes or no as it is to close out that little pop-up. But if they click yes, you leverage the consistency principle. Maybe they'll give you a little bit more in the open-ended box, right? And you can ask them the question there. Another flavor of this to make them work a little bit harder is, what were the top 3 things that almost held you back? That makes them work a little bit harder. You never get 3 things. You lower your response rate, you never get 3 things, but you get more thoughtful answers. If you've got the traffic, that's a little bit, that's a question to try as well. The other kind of voice of customer dimensions that we go for is around motivation. Usually we're sending a survey out for that, like, why do you, what matters to you when shopping for beauty and cosmetics online or jewelry online? What matters to you most? Or why did you choose us versus a competitor? What other competitors were you looking at? You can ask questions like that. The other one is behavior, just friction, getting voice of customer data on that. And that's through user testing. That's another kind of flavor. So you've got one spoke of the wheel is anxieties, and other is motivation, and then behavior, friction. So I can go on and on this topic. I just did that course, so you gotta stop me.
No problem. So I was curious about your experience with this approach. So to make this really actionable for people with us today, is there anything holding you back to buy from us today? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then you have an open-ended response. You don't have alternatives, because what I'm curious is if you've tested based on the, I don't know, first 100 answers to that question, to come back with the alternatives and then treat it in real time, because you can transform this research into a way to treat the objections of those customers. What do you think?
There's a couple things there. The open-ended versus closed-ended. With generally you start with open-ended, and if you've got the traffic, be open-ended. With a pop-up, you can on product or cart page, you can expect a 2, 3, 5% response rate. Another way to do it is if you're in checkout and you go back to cart, you're going upstream, you're going the wrong way. Full screen takeover. Hey, why didn't you, whatever? It's pretty aggressive.
Yeah,
you'll get 10% response rate or something like that. You don't want to have those on all the time. The post-purchase, you'll get the highest response rate. That's a really, really good one. And then open versus closed. The open, the closed assumes that you know all the options, right? You want to be surprised. You want to dig through the open-ended data and find the nuggets of gold, because again, the name of something is not the same as something. If people say price, they don't actually mean price. There's something else in their heads, and you need the open-ended data. You need it in their words to make the leap between the data, the name of something and the something. And so the open-ended is good for that. Closed-ended is for benchmarking. Like, what are the objections on desktop versus mobile? Because the people are exploring your site and from different places, in their car versus not in their car. Like, how are the differences there across the your devices, for example, or across channels? What are the differences across channel? That's when closed-ended questions come in handy when you're benchmarking. So that's my kind of tips on that setup. I think there was a second part of your question that I wanted to come back to, but I forgot right now. So what it was?
Yeah, it was it was if you found objection treatment working on these examples.
Yeah. So your question sort of goes towards, what do you do with the data, right? Like, how, like, what are we doing with this data? You're trying to mitigate those objections, but it could go into like product or feature. It could go to your product team, or people have questions about something, and so maybe you change the messaging to mitigate those issues, or to add new features to your product, whatever it might be. Something like that. So with native deodorant, for example, one of the biggest winners, if you go to their product page right now, you see a bunch of different scent swatches, on the product page. In the beginning, there was just a drop down, with a bunch of names, right? But people just saw like coconut and vanilla, and they were like, no, I don't really like that scent, and then it bounced out. Showing the visual swatches was a result of doing customer research and realizing that there were people who were like, asking a lot of questions about Sense. They were a little confused about it. They wanted to know more about it, and then Sense were sort of a big signal, right? So like, well, let's get around that hesitation, try to make it more visual, bring awareness towards the breadth of Sense available.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of a storytelling on how we applied it in that case.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Ben. It's based on our experience so far in improving in helping some of our customers to improve the customer lifetime value. And part of the process for direct to consumer as well was to apply the jobs to be done methodology, so that they can find the let's say what's causing them to actually buy the product. What is which are the forces of progress to switch or to, let's say, hire other products. And my question to you is, do you think this could be applied in not only in the customer value optimization, which it's clear that is working once you want to improve the product lines and the messaging and everything, it's going to help, but have you got any experience with using jobs to be done in your experience at CXL, and what do you think about this from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's we do, and I think over the last year we've more and more, and you're probably seeing the same things and kind of thinking about it for the same reasons. But really talking to customers and talking through their like day-to-day and what their pains are around how the product solves or addresses those pains. So not talking about the product, but talking about their sort of story arc around like trying to solve it and what it means for them, and how much value they place on it and what they're trying to really get at it. And so a lot of our survey questions, a lot of our survey practices, a lot of it goes over, email with a survey, but we're doing more and more either customer interviews or sales, sales people interviews, customer service rep interviews around or with the jobs to be done model, sort of at hand. A really good bridge resource, by the way, for this is a book called The Mom Test. The Mom Test. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a short one. It's a good audiobook. It's still in that sort of startup space where jobs to be done kind of applies more directly of like product market fit, versus what CRO is usually dealing with is channel growing into other channels and optimizing in those margins and things like that. But when understanding user objections, understanding user motivations, it helps to understand their day-to-day, how they describe addressing the problem that they're trying to get your product to help solve. And that's that whole jobs to be done. Also circles back to my man, Richard Feynman. The name of something is not the something. Your product is not what you sell. You're selling usually alleviation of pain somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's that jobs to be done. That's the jobs to be done theory right there.
Yeah, I really see jobs to be done as a way to let's say see the underlying reasons why customers are buying, I don't know, whatever products. And what I found where I found it to be very effective is for direct to consumer brands. And I think we've lost Ben.
No, I'm here. I pressed the HD button. Sorry.
We still switch ourselves right from the left to right. So what I was stating is that I think jobs to be done is an amazing, let's say, theory to validate what you're building as a product and what's the pain that the customers are trying to solve with your product. I don't find it though very effective, and I'll be open to your take on this. Very effective for marketplaces or e-commerce companies where they can't do anything about their products. They can't change the packaging. These are their vendors. They can, at most, they can change the suppliers and the brands that they put in front of their audience.
I think they could also change campaigns, how they market, how they speak to, what words they use, both on the campaign level and on the
Yeah,
landing page level. So
yeah,
copy,
yeah.
basically, copy
Exactly.
is a big one. Yeah.
That makes sense. So we have 5 more minutes to go, Ben, and I think we owe our audience a
Yeah.
topic. So we've let's say used the copy to expose what we're after in this episode, and the copy said that one of the main topics is how and where to leverage zero-party data for long consideration time user journeys. So what's your let's nail this as well to do our job properly.
Yeah, so that one I referred to a little bit earlier with regards to asking questions when they come in, and then allowing the user to describe themselves,
Yeah.
almost like in the jobs to be done type of framework. Like, how old are you? Where are you? It's got to be relative to your product, right? It has to help you segment or help you suggest a particular product or product levels or whatever it might be. But when you land on a site, you have like perfume company. Native doesn't do it, Native does have a quiz, like a scent finder quiz, like, to try to suss out what type of person are you, and would you like a charcoal scent versus like a floral scent and things like that.
Yeah.
But these e-commerce quizzes are really, really powerful. My man, there's a guy. There's a resource that I want to get to your audience here, that he has a database of 100 or so e-commerce shops that are using these quizzes to gather that zero-party data. I'll grab that and get it to you right after this call. I don't have it on the tip of my head, but I want to get it to your audience. It's really powerful to find a bunch of examples of people doing this. But you think about these quizzes and these wizards that you come onto the site with. It's permission marketing. So I'm this person, I'm that person, I'm that person, all before you've provided an email, right? You can remarket then more efficiently, and then maybe eventually they give you their email. Maybe you get them on a list for free shipping or for a newsletter or something. You also have the zero-party data to customize that and to do some lead scoring potentially. Maybe you have a high dollar type of e-commerce where you've got a sales process and mechanism, lead scoring. You can use the zero-party data in lead scoring. And then the big thing, the zero-party data could speak to firmographics, demographics. It could speak to preference data. You can personalize. You can use that data when they're coming back to the site to provide to feed your personalization machine, whatever you're using. So yeah, there's 3 examples where that intent level data, zero-party data, can really level up. And what's cool from a testing perspective for everyone out there that's doing testing and maybe working for an agency, all of the to test into that, it's all non-inferiority testing. You're not looking to increase conversion rate. You're looking to keep conversion rate the same, but gather more data from your user so you can get better return on ad spend, so you can get a better sales process, and so on. So, that's my take on the intent stuff. It's an exciting area.
That makes sense. Ben, the last question. We are trying to gather all the wisdom from everyone, which is a guest in the e-commerce growth show. So we are aiming to build an ebook, to write an ebook based on the advice that everyone is getting to the e-commerce companies and out there. So the question for you is, what would be your #1 advice for an e-commerce company willing to grow? Our audience is mainly composed of mid-sized companies, so that you can have some sort of profiling. But the idea is that that's going to become your input in the ebook, of course, if we have your acceptance.
Yeah, my #1, I'll do it at a strategic level and then a tactical level. The strategic level is to stay really close to your customer values. and you know, and that can look like a lot of different things, but really tap in and stay very close to your customer values, because you might need to shift your whole product line, your what you sell, how you sell it, if there's shifts in customer values. And so getting alignment of your business values with the customer values, and the more aligned you are there, and the experimentation programs, that's what they aim to do, is to help that alignment. Sort of strategic level, staying really closely aligned with your customer. Tactically, listening to your customer. I would say that post-purchase survey, that question by Andrew Morris, after they purchase, get data, continually get that data, and have it actually go somewhere, and have it actually affect change within your organization and how you do what you do. So tactically collecting voice of customer data, that's a way to help stay really, really closely aligned. If you're launching things, if you're launching new things, the CEO, whoever's setting up vision, should be on the customer support calls. They should be listening to their customers and hearing what they want to say. That's the only way to stay really closely aligned. And that's especially important, again, if you're setting strategy or launching something new. After you've got it running, then you want to optimize, and then you want to, you know, look at margins and process. But to make sure you don't become irrelevant at the principal level, really staying close to your customer values.
Excellent. So Ben, that was the last question from my end. Thanks a lot for being part of the e-commerce growth show. Where can people reach out to you? I've placed here for you the link to your course for those of you which are on LinkedIn and on Crowdcast. You have the link here. On YouTube, I'm going to add it right now. So where can people reach out to you if they need?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. I'm also on Twitter a little bit, but not very active there. LinkedIn, though, connect with me there at like Ben/Labay.
Excellent. So Ben, thanks a lot for being with us today, and thanks a lot everyone for being with us today. That was from our end. See you next week at 3 p.m. UK time with Jeff from SiteTuners. From my end, all the best.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Valentin. Bye.
Thank you, Ben, as well.